webinars. Obviously, we'll have a few people joining in now since we're right at the top of the hour, but just wanted to say thank you for joining. Today's webinar is going to be fairly short and sweet and to the point. We'll be talking about something new that's coming to Minute, as I'm sure you might have guessed from the title. We'll give everyone just a couple of more seconds here before we kick off to make sure people are able to join. As they do that, I'll just comment, as I normally do, that in the right-hand sidebar of our webinar today, there's a chat box. Feel free to add your questions at any point throughout the webinar. At the end, we will have some time to answer those questions, and I'll get to as many as I can there. So don't feel like you have to wait until the end to ask those. Just go ahead and fill them in at any time, and we will get to them at the end. Great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick off as people continue to join. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nathan Smith. I lead our team here at Minute in the Americas region. Our company is based in Sweden, for those who don't know, with offices in London as well. And then a bunch of us folks spread across the world, myself being in the US. And I'm here to talk today about a very exciting topic, to me at least. I deal so much directly with our customers, and the device that I'm about to talk about today is a direct result of those conversations. So what we are going to speak about today is our most advanced smoking sensor yet. So I am teasing to you today the pre-launch of a new upcoming device. This is not a successor to our current M3 battery-powered device, which many of you may be familiar with. This is a brand new device, and it is actually our first hardwired device. So on the screen here, you see our upcoming Minute E1 sensor. The goal of this sensor is to help provide a few key things to a specific customer set that's fairly new to us here at Minute. For those of you that have used our product in the past, you probably know that we are very well established in the short-term rental market. A few years back, though, we launched our first cigarette smoke detection feature in our battery-powered M3 Minute device. And with that came a very big swell of demand from people in other areas of property management, whether it be residential, rental, senior housing, affordable housing, etc. And so with that came a lot of really great ideas, great feedback about the device itself. And you're going to see the result of us taking that feedback on board today. We're going to talk about how you can get more verified incident reporting through our new device. We're going to talk about how it doesn't need batteries. I mentioned at the beginning it is hardwired. We're going to talk about the differences in Wi-Fi needs. And the goal here is that you would have no blind spots in your property management. So as I said, this device, the E1 hardwired device, came as a result of feedback that we got from customers and prospects, just like you that are joining us today, about what our current sensor could do as it was battery powered, and maybe the things that people wanted it to do. So with that, let's take a look at why we built this device. Essentially, the goal here is to help you enforce compliance in every single rental unit that you manage. What I've heard a lot from my own customers is that the primary need is that they need evidence somewhere logged in a time-stamped way that they can trust and that they can utilize in various situations, some of which we'll touch on here in just a moment. So that's something we're now able to provide with this sensor. Another thing they mentioned is that they wanted more advanced smoking detection. So our current battery-powered sensor, the simple truth is there's always going to be a trade-off between battery longevity and sensitivity when it comes to something like cigarette smoke detection. And we heard from many of our more residential-minded property managers that they would prefer actually to either have no battery at all or have some way of hardwiring the device. We took that feedback and built the E1 sensor. So now there are a few ways that this device can be hardwired. First is power over Ethernet. The great thing about power over Ethernet is that it obviously provides not only the power, but it also provides the internet. So you've got both in one easy cable. I've got several customers who are already testing out the E1 device for us, and they're using Power over Ethernet. It's a wonderful solution if it's already installed in your rental units, or if you're building new ones, then that's an amazing option. Another is simply a USB-C cable. So just like our M3 battery powered device, you can plug it in simply with the USB-C cable. And then the last is direct to the power mains with an AC connection. So a typical power cable can be hardwired in like any other appliance that might be mounted to the ceiling or to the wall. So any of those are there. And what that brings is the ability to then monitor for air quality, or in this case, actual particles of smoke in the air at all times. So with our battery powered version, obviously, like I say, there's always some trade-off between the efficiency versus the battery. And so with the hardwired version, that's not a consideration. Now you can have increased accuracy with fewer false positives and fewer false negatives as well. And then, as I mentioned in point number 1, it produces a nice time-stamped alert that you can then use for evidence in any situation where you may need it. The goal, of course, here is to provide you with specific unit level reporting, meaning when you have a resident who's complaining about someone smoking, there's no more he said, she said regarding whether that complaint is founded or not. You have the evidence on a unit by unit basis to determine whether you should follow up on that complaint, whether you should charge someone a fine, even if it's a short-term rental guest, whether they should be charged an extra cleaning fee, etc. You now have that at your fingertips. Additionally, there are a few things that we heard from our customers as well. The first was about reliable network connectivity. We know that if you're in a short-term rental management situation, you likely are managing your own Wi-Fi network, of course. That makes it quite easy to connect to our existing devices. But we know that if you're in a more residential setting, that the resident is likely the one that has the actual internet account. They know the SSID and password, and having them provide it to you can be tricky. You may have building-wide Wi-Fi, but perhaps it's only there to provide connectivity to certain devices on the exterior or in the hallways, and perhaps it doesn't reach into each residence. And we know that things change with Wi-Fi connectivity in a larger building, and that can cause problems with connectivity across devices like ours. So the other thing that we've built on top of this new E1 device is our own internet gateway, the G1 Minute Internet Gateway. In conjunction with this E1 sensor, they both provide a sub-gigahertz network. The goal there is that we don't need incredible speeds for our internet connections with our devices, but what we do need is for the range to be as wide as it possibly can be, and that it could permeate through any type of construction, whether that be concrete floors and walls, or metal construction, or even the typical wood and the sheetrock construction. So any of those types of construction, we want to make sure that you can install our devices and that they would reliably connect to internet. So now with our E1 gateway, or with our E1 device and our G1 gateway, you can do just that. Have reliable connectivity every single time. And the devices themselves, the E1 devices, can also create their own mesh networking network so that they can communicate with one another, so that if connectivity is for some reason lost to one of the devices, as long as it's in proximity to one of the other E1 devices, that mesh network allows it to share that connectivity across devices. So the goal here is no more reliance on resident internet or campus networks if you're a student housing provider, or as I mentioned, even your own building managed Wi-Fi in case it's not up to par. Additionally, there's a real benefit to the lack of maintenance that's required when there are no batteries. Obviously, I heard it a lot from my residential property managers that even if the Minute M3 battery powered device can last up to 12 or even 14 months on a single charge, sometimes if you're using every single feature of our device, and if maybe something were to go wrong, like a loss of Wi-Fi or something, and the device is constantly searching, it can drain the battery. And having to charge during the terms of a lease, which is obviously typically 12 months, can be cumbersome. So we wanted to give our customers a very zero maintenance option here with the E1 device. You hardwire it in one of the ways that I mentioned before. There's no battery then. There's no need for any sort of charging maintenance or schedules related to charging. And then as I mentioned with the Wi-Fi, offline sensors become a thing of the past. So you've got full-time coverage all the time, install it once, and then forget about it. And then lastly, as I hinted at earlier, it's been asked a lot about advanced smoking detection. Well, while the M3 device is a great addition, the cigarette smoke feature is a great addition to our short-term rental portfolio managers. This device having the ability to be hardwired and constantly powered means that you can now detect actual particles in the air, not just air quality change. And that allows us to detect things quicker and more accurately with fewer false positives. Just as a reminder, based on one of the questions actually that came in through the chat box just now, the ways that this is hardwired for those that joined us late are either through power over Ethernet cable, USB-C cable, or direct to any sort of power mains with an AC connection. So a typical power cable that runs through the walls or ceiling. So we talk a little bit here about why we've built this. Like I said, most of it comes from feedback from our customers, and that leads me into our first poll. I want to hear from you all, whether you're a customer a minute already or not, about what is the biggest frustration you have with any sort of current smoking sensor. So as you can see here, the answers are that there are too many false positives, missed events. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe you have something that works really well for you already. Perhaps you don't have anything at all specific to cigarette smoke, or maybe it's another problem altogether. If something else is your answer, then please do also write into the chat and let us know what that something else might be. Looks like the early leader is I don't have a smoking sensor. Not too surprising. I know the technology is fairly new. It's a fairly new market, so not too terribly surprised. But I'm glad you're here to learn more about what we have to offer. Great. Well, I'll move forward as people continue to answer. As I said, if you have a specific comment about your something else, I'd love to hear about it in the chat as well. So we talked a little bit about the why we built things the way we built them, but I also want to talk about the why in terms of why it matters to you. Why should you have some sort of cigarette smoke monitoring, and how could it benefit you? A few obvious ones are listed here. First is for legal protection. I've heard the question so many times from my own prospects and customers about using our evidence in court. Even from the earliest days of Minute, when our primary feature was noise, we've had this question come up. And over the years, people have had to do just that. They've had to use our evidence, specifically with noise, for years and years in court proceedings. It's an unfortunate part of property management when things do enter the courts, but it does happen. And we're very lucky that the data that we provide has always served our customers very, very well in those situations. And we hope that E1 is no different. Our goal here is to provide you with very up to the minute timestamped data related to smoking incidents that you can then take anywhere you need, even if it's in a legal proceeding. Obviously, with every single event, you'll have a log of the actual unit number, assuming you have these installed in the units, and then, of course, the date and time of every single event. Next is simply resident care. I think one of the things I hear the most from my customers is from things like cigarette smoke, whether it's tobacco or marijuana, what tends to happen is, aside from the complaints, of course, is that you lose your good residents. Eventually, they're tired of dealing with the cigarette smoke issues of their neighbors. They leave frustrated. And what happens is you're left with the person who's smoking still as a resident, and you lose the person that you would have preferred to retain. So our hope is to help you do the exact opposite here, is to keep your residents happy, keep the ones that are following the rules particularly happy, and help them to actually verify if any sort of complaint is founded and to be able to deal with it in a timely manner. I know most of my customers are working in smoke-free buildings. That's obviously the most common type of rental these days, whether it's long-term residential rental or short-term rental. Most people want a smoke-free environment. And so our goal is to help you create exactly that. And then lastly is monitoring you can rely on. So as I said, we've done this for years and years with things like our noise data, and our goal is to do nothing less now with our cigarette smoke for tobacco and marijuana alerts for that data as well. The simple truth and why we built this device is that many other sensors lack some of the things that they desperately need. We actually have a lab in our headquarters in Sweden that's set up very similar to many of the apartments you likely manage or rental units that you manage. We not only test our own devices, but we test many other devices as well. And what we found is that many sensors are less reliable when it comes to cigarette smoke detection. There are many tests we've run now that with our E1, it catches nearly every single time and that are missed the majority of the time actually by many other devices. So we see there's still a lot of room for growth in that regard. And so we're happy to come in and help solve that problem. I mentioned earlier about Wi-Fi. That's something that can be a real issue. If this device that you're using for your cigarette smoke detection is not connected, then it doesn't do you much good. So that's a huge issue that other sensors may have problems with. Batteries that need charging and replacing, even our own current device, this could be a hurdle for you. So we recognize that, and that's exactly why we've built E1. And then, of course, gaps in compliance and reporting. You may have a device that's helping you to determine when there might be a problem with the air quality. Maybe it's even specific to cigarette smoke, but does it actually provide you with data-backed evidence that you could use in court? So as I mentioned, that's exactly why we've built E1. We've added advanced cigarette smoke detection with fewer false alarms. As I mentioned, with our own lab, we've had amazing results that for me, as someone who's dealing directly with customers, are incredibly encouraging. We've added the reliable internet connection, even through concrete. We ourselves have faced this problem with our customers when construction is incredibly thick concrete. And so we set out to solve just that issue. We wanted something that's installed once and run continuously. And that's probably the most exciting part about this product is that once you've set it up, there's virtually no maintenance in terms of charging or connectivity with whether that be Wi-Fi or power. And then of course the uninterrupted reporting. You as I mentioned before, you'll have that unit level reporting for every single rental unit. That leads us into our second and final poll today. Before you answer, I will just say we have not launched this yet. So even if the answer is simply, I want to be informed as soon as this is officially launched on the Minute Store, please do feel free to say yes here, and we will definitely add you to that list of people. The question, as you can see, is would you like to learn more about E1? If you'd like an actual demo of how this could be utilized in your actual rentals, then I would be happy to help facilitate one of those, either via myself or a member of our team. Or if you just simply have a few additional questions that you want answered that are specific to your use case, that's great as well. If you answer yes here, we will certainly reach out after the demo and connect with you to see what we can do to help provide you with more information. On that note, I know we have a few questions in the chat, and I'm actually going to jump over to those questions now. And if you'll just bear with me for just a moment, I'll scan through and see if there are any that I can combine and answer together. Okay, there's several of them are actually quite unique, so I'll actually just go down the list one at a time. So one of the questions is about tamper detection. Great question. Yes, there is tamper detection. So if you're familiar with our previous device, it has a magnetic mounting plate, and the tamper alert would come when the device is removed from that magnetic mounting plate. This device will actually be installed using 2 screws into the ceiling, typically, or into the top of a wall. So in terms of tampering and pulling it down, that won't be something that the resident or the guest would easily be able to do. There is one area which you can access the device for installation or if you need to do any sort of maintenance, etc. And that essentially removes the cover. If that's ever done by a resident, you would get an immediate tamper alert as well. So yes, you would certainly know if someone's tampering with it. Another tampering aspect I've heard some people mention is covering devices like these. So I know some smokers may tend to try and cover a smoke alarm or something if they plan to smoke. I will say there are ways for us to determine exactly this. When it launches, I'm not certain that there would be an immediate alert for this type of tampering, but it's something that's already on our roadmap and is certainly something that we're capable of alerting for. So it's a matter of just getting that turned on for you. If that's something that's a big concern of yours, feel free to reach out and you can certainly beta test that alert type as well. Someone asked if this detects only cigarette smoke. We often refer to these as cigarette smoke alerts, but I always try and make clear that it is tobacco and marijuana. So we do detect for both types of smoke. We've had questions in the past about other types of smoke, whether it be methamphetamine type of chemicals or vape or things of that nature. At the moment, our models are trained specifically for tobacco and marijuana. However, we are exploring what other options we could add. In terms of vape, for instance, we've had very mixed comments about it. Some people prefer to have alerts about that. Some people prefer not. Feel free to sound off on that in the chat and let me know which side you fall on. Someone asked about the device giving instant notifications. I still wouldn't say the word instant because the benefit of our device is that it's not just giving you an alert if there's a particle in the air. The goal here is certainly still to filter out contaminants such as burnt food or things of that nature that you actually don't want an alert about. So for that reason, it does still use machine learning to determine, yes, there are particles in the air, but now what type of particles are they? Is it tobacco and marijuana or is it something else? So for that reason, it wouldn't be instantaneous within seconds, but we are talking about a quick notification. Yes. Someone else asked when we expect it to be launched. We're already producing these in preparation for the launch. So while I don't have an exact date, please do continue to check back. It will be quite soon. I mentioned earlier, we already have these in the field being utilized by some of our customers. So we are definitely talking about a matter of weeks rather than months or years here. See what other, there's a lot of great questions here, so I appreciate it. Please keep them coming. Someone asked if the tobacco and marijuana, if those are differentiated in the alert. At the moment, no. Primarily because there are still many states in the US, for instance, in which there's a mandatory reporter law, meaning if we were to tell you it's marijuana, then our customers are then legally obligated to inform the police immediately. And so at this time, it still simply says that there's a smoking event and it doesn't differentiate between the type. Someone else asked, does this send messages to the guest or to the resident as well in cases of an incident? At this time, no. Most of the feedback we've received from our customers is that they would prefer to be the only ones to know that an alert was received so that they can go follow up on it in person or so the evidence maybe isn't hidden. So that is the way we do it at the moment. I won't say that it's out of the question that an alert like that could be sent to the guests. We do constantly add to our suite of features and send messages to guests about many different things. So if that's something that you'd like to see, please do provide that feedback to our team. Lots of really great questions here. Let me just make sure I've hit most of the ones that apply to everyone. If you asked one that was very specific to your use case, I'll be really happy to follow up with you individually about it. Someone asks about a potential eviction or court proceedings that they need to verify the time of the event. And so in terms of the delay in reporting, is that a concern? You should be fine in that case. Like I said, we're talking about a matter of seconds to minutes, not, hours or even half hours, et cetera. So because we're using particulate matter style sensor, our sensor immediately sees that there's something in the air, immediately kicks into that machine learning mode to determine what type of contaminant is in the air. So the process is fairly quick there. And again, that's a benefit over something like a battery powered sensor because you're having to do things in such a way to conserve the battery. So that type of polling is maybe done on more of a cycle. So you definitely should see the results more quickly. Great. Well, like I said, I think there are some other questions, but they're primarily very specific to certain use cases. So for those of you that have asked questions like that, just know that I'll follow up with you offline. Oh, sorry, I do see one other question that would be valuable for everyone to know. Someone asked about where these should be installed. Ideally, similar to our battery-powered sensor, this would be installed either on the ceiling or toward the top of a wall. That is absolutely not 100% required. You can install it in other places. Just I would consider things such as The sensor being blocked not by a bag or a towel or someone intentionally trying to block it, but if you're installing it, low on a wall and someone unintentionally places something in front of it that could affect the range of vision of the particulate matter sensor, then it could degrade the quality of the alerts. So just be considerate of that. If you can install it in the ceiling, that's perfect. I have many of my customers who will actually install it alongside their fire alarm if their fire alarm is hardwired, because then they can actually just splice onto the same exact power cable and run them on the same power line. So if your smoke alarms don't go back to an actual fire panel, that's probably the most ideal choice. Otherwise, we can obviously talk to you individually about some options. And then one other question that someone asked is about the cost. Is it the same as our current devices? And thankfully, the answer to that is yes. So just like our battery powered device, these will be $100 for the hardware cost. And so no change there whatsoever. Oh, sorry. One other one. You keep popping in good ones that are good for everyone to see, and I want to make sure everyone gets the benefit from them. So I'll answer this one as well. Someone asked about perfumes and diffusers and things of that nature. These should not trigger the sensor. If for some reason they do, that's something that you can absolutely report back to us directly in app, and then we can use that data to train the model to be sure that they don't alert for them in the future. But that's exactly what we use our lab for, is to test with other types of smoke as well. We don't just send tobacco and marijuana smoke through the lab. We send other types of smoke that we actually want to exclude from our reporting. So it should be trained both on what to alert for and what not to alert for. Finally, looks like the last question that's popped in is about needing one for each room. So typically people are installing one device per apartment or per rental unit. So you likely won't need one for every single room. If you have a very large rental unit or apartment that might have multiple bedrooms, it is possible you may want a second device as well. But you can certainly start with just one. And for anything under 1,500 square feet or 200 square meters, you should be in a pretty good use case for just one device. Anytime you get up to 3 and above bedrooms, it's worth considering based on the square footage and the shape and layout of the rental unit. Well, wonderful. So many good questions. That's a really good sign here that we've probably struck a chord with many of you, and that hopefully we can solve a problem that you're having. We don't enjoy the fact that you're having these problems, but if we can be of use to help you solve them, then that's exactly why we exist. So thank you for joining. Please do reach out. You can reach out to me directly if you have any additional questions. My email is nathan.smith@minute.com. If you've answered yes to our poll question about wanting more information, then we will absolutely be reaching out to you to see exactly how we can help you. Either myself or one of my colleagues would be happy to take you through the device in even more detail. Well, thank you again for joining, and we hope that you'll join us next time for our next Minute webinar. Thanks, everyone.